So let's do a few intro slides and then we'll keep going. So folks who don't know, formally now we formed a company, but we started as a group, just a learning group, and we do education and advisory. We don't sell any products, really focus on practical business use cases. So we talk a lot with the bifocals out there that we see, where the top of the bifocals are a lot of discussion on, is AI going to take us, and AI ethics, AI going to kill us, AI ethics, all the really important big issues. We're in the bottom part of those bifocals, really talking about how businesses in particular can use this in the next 3 and 24 months for competitive advantage. Tend to be half business and half technical for a bunch of reasons here. Our centerpiece really is this learning lab. We're doing a lot more, but it's really about learning as we all fight up this learning curve, and the swimming analogy that I and others use. We publish a bunch of use cases. We do a bunch of workshops for customers, so much discussion with investors and teams and everything else. And we really do a lot of connecting people, both on kind of chat here, one-on-one through me, and increasingly for different colleagues that are meeting on some of our networking events or online events like this. For people who are finally interested, send me your email. We're finally getting a bit more organized. And if you'd like to be added to our weekly recurring meeting in Google Calendar, let me know. Right now it goes through Meetup Calendar, and I'm not even sure it's recurring over there or not. So send me an email either on chat or one-on-one, and I'll add you to the invite. For people who haven't seen it, we've got 15, 16 use cases. We're really behind on doing this more. And once we get through this conference, one of the things I want to do is start capturing more and more of these. We really find this as an effective way to help the other 99% of the people in the world understand what's going on and get comfortable trying. The YouTube channels there, we're mostly publishing this particular meeting and different ad hoc testimonials and speeches. We're behind in this, but we have a free networking event we call AI Woodstock. It's just fun. It's a great way that people mix. We do it at a free timeout market, either in Boston or New York City. There's a couple other cities that are going to be doing it as well. This logo costs $2 through Upwork, and everyone seems to love it. So we're going to continue to have some fun and find person-to-person in-person networking events rather than just always being online. I continue to do a lot of work with Harvard Business School. Yep.
Paul, apologies. Quick question. What's the frequency of those Woodstock events? Is it quarterly kind of, or?
No, they're supposed to be monthly, and
okay.
I haven't, it's supposed to be,
You got too much going on. No, I was just wondering what the intention was. Yeah, thank you.
The intention originally was the second Wednesday of every.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm still swirling around trying to kick that up in Melbourne, so that's why I wanted to know.
And the one in New York was so I think it was like 150 people signed up. It was the day where all that smoke and smog came from Canada down in New York City. It was just horrific. And a lot of people thought we were going to cancel anything that was going to show. And we had 80 people there. And I couldn't believe, I'm like, so what the hell are you guys doing here? I mean, this is New York City. You must have a bazillion AI events. And they said the same thing we see everyone else. There's events that are very, very, I think it's changing, but most of the events are very, very technical on a specific aspect of a large language model or a transformer, or it's just really broad, like data analytics. And people are really looking for generative AI use cases, both on the business side and technical side. And it's amazing. I kind of get used to doing all this stuff, and then you go to these events and just find out how many people are just so excited and the energy out there. So it's really a wonderful event, and it's a great part of the early market process we're in right now. Just a few announcements. So Harvard Business School, continue to do a lot with Shekar and Krim over there, the two professors. What's public now is Shekar and I did a webinar last week on just the basics of ChatGPT, and I go through a use case called coffee cups for left-handed people. The recording's online. It's free if you want to see that, but we got a lot of really good response. And Harvard's really trying to get caught up. I mean, I think they're a little bit in the caboose historian mode right now, and they're really moving forward, as you can imagine. They have a lot of issues, like a lot of schools do, on copyright issues. And one of the things that they're really struggling with is people haven't seen, you can put a whole HBS case, which are 20 to 40 pages, up into ChatGPT and ask me to analyze it. So historically, what might take an HBS student 2 to 6 hours you can now get a first pass done in seconds, and they're really struggling to figure out what to do with it. And I know a lot of schools are really figuring out what their responsibility are as educators, and some of them are saying, boy, we should have all of our students need to know basic general AI. And how do we do that? Is it a week boot camp before school starts in September or whatnot? So, but anyway, lots of good stuff on terms of helping folks learn. If you need the link, let me know. Last week, just last week, we talked about this AI conference at MIT. I know some of you folks on the line attended. Unbelievable. It was 1,000 people at CSAIL, which is the large computer science AI department at MIT. They had 40 talks, 1-minute talks in the morning on startups. Just a fabulous event. The great news is it was all recorded, and the recordings are slowly coming out on Forbes. So the 3 this week were from Daniela Rus, Bob Metcalf, and Danina Katabi. And particularly Danielle Rus. I mean, the whole thing about liquid neural networks is really interesting for folks who haven't heard of it. It's she's got an 8-minute talk to give you a sense for it. And Dina Katabi one was also, I had not heard of her technology, but she's got working on technology uses radio frequency in the home to monitor health biomarkers 24/7 without needing to, put any devices or actually touch the human. So it's really a fascinating way that we're, unassisted 24/7 health may be coming down the pike, relatively short period of time. So anyway, look up those. You can look up Forbes, just do Forbes YouTube. If you can't find it, send me an email and I'll get you the thing. We have a conference coming up ourselves. Crazy to pull this off in 2 months or 3 months, but we are. It's really focused on enterprise generative AI use cases. It may be the only one in the country, or maybe one other is focused on it. So we've got tremendous response. So Price Waterhouse is a sponsor. UBS, which is a huge bank, is a sponsor that we're going to get them up on the website soon. Goodwin, it's a big national law firm, they're a sponsor. Fleischman Hiller, the largest PR firm in the United States, they're a sponsor. We've got a great set of confirmed speakers already. Shakar from Harvard, I mentioned earlier, he's speaking. We've got Tim from Mayo. Jose's flying in from Portugal. He's gotten Microsoft, I think 3 years ago, had a global contest for the best healthcare AI deployment, and he won it with what they've done in Portugal. That I think is a 4,000 person hospital. It's just stunning, and he's going to share some of the examples there. Who else can I share? We've got Pinar. She's a unbelievable talent in the movie commercial area. She's in Boston, and she's going to show, people haven't seen it, the transformative things going on, particularly with movies and short films and commercials. And she's going to give us an overview of that. And we can go on. Connor Grannon, people may know him from LinkedIn. He's a New York University Dean of Students, but has a YouTube and has been a real pioneer in a lot of the using the application. Chip and Rudina are two of the lead VCs in Boston investing in AI enterprise, and they'll share. So anyway, lots of great things. I hope you can join us. It is a high-end thing, so tickets are $24.95, and right now they're $18.95. And if you're on this thing and you want a discount, give me an email. We're happy to give you a discount for there. But it's going to be a really good event, and it's going to sell out. It's already got lots of good interest.
How many, what's the capacity on that?
Oh, good. It's 320 roundtables, 320, 25 speakers. There's going to be 15 exhibitors. They're in tabletop exhibits, and the reception of first night will probably be at the Microsoft Nerd Center, the Research Center, or it could be at the Google Research Center, which is also here in Cambridge.
Well, Paul, if no one's told you lately, you're absolutely killing it organizing this event. So congratulations and well done.
Well, it's thank you.
Dude, you're right in the thick of it. I know, but it's looking great, and you've got some incredible speakers, and there's a lot of interest. So yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, the two other people were just, I mean, the agenda's full, but if we can get Stefan Wolfram, who's just a god in my view on this stuff. We've reached out to him and trying to get him on. And the only other person we're really trying to get is I think they by chance knows him. Coca-Cola named the first global generative AI or head of AI or something like Pratik something. It's really on the marketing side, but it's the most senior Gen AI title that I'm certainly aware of, or anyone else I'm aware of. So and Coke is really, to their credit, way ahead of a lot of the other traditional brands and using the medium to really interact with customers. So a lot of good stuff there. Let's see if we can go forward here. So Code Interpreter, who this thing is unbelievable for folks who haven't heard about it. Who wants to give an overview of it? Basic overview. Go ahead. I see Francois, is that your hand, raising your hand? Yeah, please. Tell us what the heck this thing is and why would we want to spend any minutes on it? And first introduce yourself too.
So everything that is informative, I'm avid to get those kind of information.
I'm sorry, say that again, Francois.
I'm avid to get information. I have more a background in database.
Oh, okay.
So that part I'm not very fluent.
I see. Okay. Has anyone? I'm happy to go through it. If anyone, Bob, have you spent any time with Code Interpreter or Adam?
Yeah, Paul, I certainly have. Go ahead, Bob.
No, you go ahead, Adam.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So my understanding is that Code Interpreter, first of all, for people who are familiar in ChatGPT, if you pay for version 4 instead of 3.5, which is that monthly subscription, you get access to the model that has the better reasoning.
Adam,
you also get.
Excuse me, Adam, you want to show your screen, or I'm happy to show mine. Can you show Code Interpreter? Yeah. Sure. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, not at all. I'll just share my screen. That usually gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, here's just an interesting footnote, by the way. We'll get back to it. There's a warning there on the screen. Can you see that? Because I have notes on my screen. I can't see it.
Yeah, no, we could just see that. We don't see. We just see that your Code Interpreter timed out.
Yeah. So actually, I'll show you here. When you go to make a new chat, this is just more broadly. There's 3.5 and there's 4. You have to go into your settings to actually make sure, if you're paying for it, that you have these beta features turned on. So a lot of people pay for the upgraded product, but they don't even know that this is available to them yet because they haven't turned on the beta features.
And you'll see, Adam, if I interrupt, sorry to interrupt again. And it's not in the plugin store. You have to go to the settings to find it. I've got a lot of people looking for it in the plugin store.
Yeah, that's right. And so I was about to say is it's actually, as you'll notice, it's a separate feature from the plugins entirely. So you have to enable it separately. But at that point up here, you see now I have plugins and Code Interpreter as options. So here's an example. This was actually literally last night in bed, and I tweeted about it. I was just, if it'll load. Everything else.
So for the folks, that's a diehard, breaking out new code.
I was just
tweeting about it.
I was literally just scrolling my thread and I saw someone had tweeted out this thing. And this was just an image on Twitter, and they were talking about how Cam has this fan points that just are blowing these other guys away. And I was like, I know it does OCR stuff. I wonder if literally from a picture on my phone, Code Interpreter can pull these stats out. And so I did this on my phone last night, and I saved that image and I uploaded it. And this message, by the way, so Code Interpreter spins up a temporary memory where ChatGPT now has a file system and it can execute Python commands. So that opens up tons of libraries and capabilities in terms of how it can work with data, how it can extract data. And by data, it turns out we're discovering it means GIFs, MP4s, audio files, as well as I was just reading something about it can read 3D images, basically like a mesh, the topology of a mesh. So I don't know, literally it's been out a couple of days. We're still figuring out what it can do. But this message, so all of the good work I did, once I walk away from it and I come back however long later, 15 minutes or something, they've spun down that temporary memory. So all of those files it might have given me to download or anything about that conversation history won't work perhaps the way it did. I haven't tested it too much, but that's the warning here. But you'll
Adam,
see, I just literally, go ahead, Paul.
And just for also newbies, that's unlike the other Chat GPT chats, which stay kind of forever on your left.
Yeah, thank you. That's right. Though, well, it'll still be here. It just, you'll see it actually, if it gives you a file to download, it may not download anymore. It'll say, sorry, I can't find the file. Basically, it's like it's deleted the storage. So I literally just said, can you pull out the stats for Andrew, Matt, and Cam from this image? And I uploaded this JPEG I had saved on my phone. And it went through, and the first thing it said is, it contains text, but I can't read it. I'm an AI model. Hey, let's use the OCR. Let's use optical character recognition to extract the text. Then it came back and it said, I found there's all these stats in there. Now let's parse it per individual. And then it started pulling out, Andrew Luck had 86 games, Matt Ryan had 94, Cam Newton had 83. And then you can start drawing insights from that data. So just even in terms of being able to work with unstructured data or work with data that's in formats that aren't necessarily ready for data analysis, this is an incredibly powerful tool, and that's not at all touching the actual analytics. I've been using it to clean data and prepare it for analysis. I've been doing things like telling it to change the format to Australian, simple things like that. I've taken 2 CSVs that have a common data in them, like a key, so they have the same value in two different spreadsheets, and had it make new spreadsheets where it joins the data and pulls things out. If there's duplicate rows, it can remove them, all that sort of Excel function. And of course, it's all just driven through chat and conversation. I'll probably pause there, Paul, but that's that's at least the surface.
That's wonderful, Adam. Questions or?
I have a question. How much, this is amazing, by the way. Thank you, Adam, for that great overview.
Yeah, sure, you're welcome.
How much can you trust what it generates? I mean, I noticed there were some caveats that came up just now. So when you merge two files.
I'm doing a presentation today here in Melbourne for a local council. It's kind of like a county or a local government. And I found an incredible image lately. I'll share it. I'll share it with you all. It's a decision tree to determine whether or not you should use ChatGPT for your task. I don't know if anyone's seen this. Let's see. I can put it in the chat here. But I'll share my screen as well and show you. It's hysterical. It's absolutely perfect. So here's the decision tree. I'll blow it up for you a bit. Let's see if I can. So can you all see that all right?
We can.
So does it matter if the output is true? If no, then it's safe to use ChatGPT. If yes, do you have the expertise to verify the output is accurate? If no, don't use it. If yes, are you able and willing to take full responsibility for missed accuracies? If no, don't use it. If you're willing and able, right, it's possible to use it, but you have to be sure to verify each output, word and sentence for accuracy and common sense. Like, this is probably the best thing I've seen, honestly. Like, if you have everything in place, it's still just possible. Like, I would never rely on this. Actually, this is super relevant, Paul. I'll share this as well. The MIT study back from like March. You familiar with that, Paul?
I am. It seems like so long ago, doesn't it, Adam?
Yeah, it does. So I'll actually have to do this so you can see the underslide. But so that's a lot of words, but if you just follow the highlights, it raises productivity. Time taken decreased by almost a standard deviation. Output quality was up half a standard deviation. Inequality between workers decreases. It benefits low ability workers more. It restructures tasks towards idea generation and editing and away from rough drafting. But again, you have to have the expertise to have the ideas and to take that rough draft and make the final product. It increases job satisfaction and self-efficacy, but it heightened both concern and excitement for these technologies. I think this is just a brilliant summary. And of course, I had ChatGPT, explain it like we're 12. But yeah, so that's my answer to that question.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Others, I'll walk through an example too if we have time, but Bob, have you spent much time with it and what are your thoughts?
So when you announced that you got it, I was jealous.
Oh,
And,
sorry.
but I did get it on Saturday morning and I spent a couple hours on Saturday. Due to a desire to get out and get some exercise, I went for a nice bike ride on Sunday and a hike today, as Rosemary knows. And I just literally walked in a few minutes ago. To be honest with you, and I'm going to show you the example, I was disappointed. And the reason is my expectations were, up through the roof. And I'm going to show you the example and why. I'll show you both the spreadsheet, an interim version, and the code interpreter. So let's start with the code interpreter. So basically what I did was, can you see this, Paul? Can you see
Yeah,
code interpreter?
We can see it.
All right. So the company's names that are shown in the spreadsheet is confidential, so please don't share it. But basically, I've been working with this company called Visionmedics for about 8 years. It's a college friend from Boston. He was the inventor of a procedure called selective laser trabeculoplasty, which is kind of a mouthful. But if you ever heard of the eye disease called glaucoma, 80% of the world has open glaucoma. And his procedure is used on 90%, over 90% of that 80%. So there are more procedures using SLT than the number of users on ChatGPT, to put it in perspective for you. It was invented in the 80s, and it was instantiated by a California company. So if you went and got glaucoma treated, you'd have to go to either a hospital or a clinic, because the products are desk side or desktop, big $100,000 machines. I was going to try to find a picture, but the gist of it is that they reduced it to the size of an iPhone 6 Plus and reduced the cost by a factor of 10 to allow ophthalmologists to use this in their own office. So the picture I wanted to show you was my friend Mark Latino, who founded this company called Visionmedics. I'm sorry?
That was a mistake. Sorry about that. That's my end.
No worries. So if you were to go to Mass Eye and Ear, Mass General, to put in perspective for you, he was on research staff and on the boards, the medical advisory boards for a dozen years postdoc. So there isn't a doc at either one of those institutions that wouldn't know of his work. So when he invented this, the engineers, and there's a handful of them, worked at those companies in the 80s. So these are engineers with 35, 40 years of experience of building this stuff. I was the person involved in the business side from the very founding of the company all the way to this negotiation with this French company called Quantel Medical. It's about a $750 million company. And when I developed this forecast, and you can see it back in February of 2011, is when not long thereafter, Code Interpreter came out on alpha form. So I said, gee, wouldn't it be great to be able to visualize it? Couldn't do it, but with today's open book style of spreadsheet discussions, I put together a spreadsheet that I'll show you in a second. And I said, okay, after the fact, so the term sheet is done, the deal is done, the lawyers have their respective copies of documents and so forth. So it's in the final strokes of T's and C's. So this is real time, real stuff, dollars on the table kind of stuff. So I threw it in there and basically a lot of words and asked it to give it insights. And quite frankly, not a single item here was of any use to me that I couldn't look. And you'll see the spreadsheet, it's not that complicated, or at least the second version of it. Basically tells me there's zeros in certain columns. The revenue grows from 0 to 2.4 million. Yeah. And the aggregate is 12.6 million. So nothing you wouldn't do in 30 seconds of Excel. Now let me open up the spreadsheet and I'll show you a second version of it. So for those that have been doing spreadsheets, and I started with VisiCalc back in 40 years ago, so I was one of the first users of Excel. The thing about Excel is it's not just CSV files, columns and rows. You have formulas. Now, what I did here is this, because Code Interpreter couldn't understand these separate input portions of the spreadsheet. For example, I allowed the portion of, so just to explain the spreadsheet, just to show the dimensions here, you got patent license fees due to Visionmatics. Then you have revenue forecast, quantity and revenue, very simple stuff for the company that's going to be using this technology. You see it for non-China, China, and worldwide. So this has been rocket science kind of spreadsheet stuff. And then you at the bottom.
I don't know about others, but and it looks like a number of us can't see your screen.
Let me
black,
try
yeah.
again.
Thank you, Tim.
Let me try again. See if this works.
Yeah, and yeah, Bob, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes too, please.
Sure. Can you see the screen now?
We can, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll keep it 1 minute. But the gist of it is all of the input mini tables that I had here, I thought might be screwing it up. So basically I copied and pasted just to have raw data and asked it to reinterpret this. No luck. At the bottom is the copy and paste of, I asked it to produce a CSV file of what it read here. And I gave it 10 lines of prompts telling it what every line meant. And basically it did it wrong. It included revenue in the royalty payments. So I'm going to play around with it more and see if ultimately, I think what's going to have to happen is what Code Interpreter is good at is CSV files where it has rows and columns and nothing else. I'm not sure it can understand commands where you tell it what it is, or what I try to do at the beginning is have it interpreted. So anyway, so far didn't meet my expectations. We'll see once it can do bar charts and floating graphs and all that kind of stuff.
Great, thanks, Bob. So a tough grader. And I think what's important about your use case is you knew the content really well. So you were able
Yeah.
to really judge it against ground truth. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Paul, can I share one? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Simpson.
Thanks. So I've been looking at Code Interpreter a little bit, and in particular, I asked it to debug the code that GPT-4 generated that had bugs in it. And I find that it is inconsistent. And sometimes GPT-4 does a better job analyzing the code than Code Interpreter does, and vice versa. And so I'm looking for a technical explanation of what it's actually doing. Has anything been published like in really detail?
Well, you can see the Python code when
Yeah.
you show work, so I didn't do any analysis of the Python code, not that I write Python code, but that's essentially what it's doing. And what you're describing sounds like a comparison of who does a better job of debugging Python code.
No, I want to know what is the model that it's actually using? How are things hooked up? Like, is there a technical description of this new feature that they've deployed?
I haven't seen one. I see Adam shaking his head.
Yeah.
I did see one conspiracy theory on the internet where they were saying OpenAI.
This is 4.5.
Yeah, that's really 5. They snuck it out here, which I thought
Or
was
4.5, they're saying, like 3.5 is what I've heard. Like it's, but Simpson, the one thing I'll say, because I've observed some similar things already, is it's Simpson, right? Yeah, nice to meet you. But
Hi.
it seems like the Code Interpreter is relying more heavily on Python to do the reasoning. Right, it's whatever its system prompt is that's driving the instruction set is going to find libraries that can help it answer the questions rather than using its own large language model. So that's why I think there's some inconsistency between them,
So
but absolutely there's been no exposure like to what's actually happening.
So it can clearly run Python, and I didn't even see that it was optimized for Python because like I gave it an HTML and JavaScript application that GPT-4 generated that had a bug in it.
It actually creates a Jupyter notebook in virtual memory for every Code Interpreter session.
Yeah, and you can run JavaScript in Jupyter notebooks also and run R in them too.
I think they have the
And-
wings clipped. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Alvin, you want to jump in? Thank you for raising your hand.
So I played around with it this weekend, and what I saw was that the combination of code interpreter, especially for text related stuff, it was really awesome. Like I uploaded an Excel spreadsheet and asked it to do like thematic coding of unstructured text, asked it to do sentiment analysis, right? Stuff that would be really, really difficult to do on Excel. It was able to do just like blew my socks off, right? And so to address like Bob's thing, if you're just trying to replace Excel with this, you will be heavily disappointed.
Yeah.
But if you want to do like really advanced stuff with a mixture of text and then like algorithms, then this thing will like just blow your socks off. Like things like, draw an ROC curve of this column C and then combine it with sentiment analysis of column D. To do something like that in Excel would be insanely difficult.
So Alden, what I was ultimately trying to do, and I can convert this to a question for you in a second, was to be able to have a graph so I could see the relationship between patent, in this case, patent license fees, royalty fees, and revenue. And it allowed us to play with mixes, of China versus the rest of the world. What I think needs to be done, it reminds me of the old days of Excel where you created a second chart where columns and rows in the second chart referred to cells in the prior chart in order to graph it. So essentially what I'm doing here is dumbing down the spreadsheet to get it in a form where you used to use Excel. In other words, or Excel charting. So my question is, do you really need it to dumb it down to CSV level in order to be able to see all of the charts and graphs and relationships and that sort of thing?
Yes. So one part of it, I looked at the code, and you do need to have it in a tabular format. So if your Excel is such that, you have 5 columns in one, and then after a couple of rows, you have 8 columns, and then it's all over the place, then it will just get confused. But if it is a beautiful, clean table, header row with like same number of columns everywhere, then it just becomes so much easier, because I looked at the code and they were like literally reading the full data frame as such. So like if you keep it simple, it'll be good. And if you can do it in Excel, do it in Excel. That you can't beat Excel for stuff. But if you want to do advanced stuff, like especially anything to do with text, right? This cannot be beat when it comes to text. Its ability to understand language is just off the charts.
That's great. Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I'm not trying to have it replace Excel. I've done thousands of spreadsheets of all various levels of complexity. It was more to be able to use its graphing capability to visualize what you see. As I was saying earlier, there's a lot of work to get to do that in Excel through separate tabs. But I was hoping this was going to be able to do it without having to put another layer in between. In other words, dumbing it down. But I think you've already answered that, Alden.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Let me take just 5 minutes. I want to show everyone some of the less technical people, just a really, really simple case in Code Interpreter, so everyone can at least see that. Because I want to make sure we kind of jump to advanced. I want to make sure we at least get the 101. So let me share my screen. People can see the screen. Can someone confirm they can see? Thank you. So as Adam talked earlier, it goes Code Interpreter. So you want to select it. And then you have this little plus. That's where you can upload a file. And over in my downloads, I've got this is a pretty simple income statement for 5 years. You can just upload that. And then you can start. So I haven't shown you guys the spreadsheet. I'll show it to you at the end. Now you could just, maybe someone sent this to you, or maybe you're doing due diligence and you're acquiring a firm. What is this spreadsheet about? So we've seen again and again and again, it's good at interpreting human intentions to structured and unstructured data. So it's not nearly as fast as the text-to-text stuff on GPT, but it'll come back and say it contains one sheet called financial projects. Let's load the sheet. First few of the rows contain some notes about its purpose, and it has revenue assumptions, capital needs, scenario planning. It says a spreadsheet provides some text. It looks like it's a B2C subscription service with different levels of service. Targets are parents with young children. The spreadsheet contains capital assumptions. After cleaning the data, we start to see a clearer picture. Has a base case scenario, price sensitivity. And I haven't typed anything in this. This is just going off. To get a better understanding, let's explore this data further. Base case, expense assumptions, other major costs, price sensitivities, CAC, which is customer acquisition cost. And for folks who are early discussion here, the show work is you can open this up and actually then see the code that's being generated in the back. And you can copy it as well if you want. And then we can keep going and ask it to do a few things. So you can start saying, we mentioned some of these on YouTube, create a graph of revenue growth.
Paul, the spreadsheet was a CSV file or
I think it was Excel file. Let's go confirm it after this.
Yeah, it was an Excel file, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Paul, I also, this is the point where I like to say, what would be some good ways to visualize this data and just let it make some different graphs as well? That's like it'll usually come up with some pretty good ones on its own as well.
Excellent.
Josh.
So that was a pretty great, and let's do Adam's thing here. There are some good ways to visual. And Adam, what I like about this one as well is we've seen so many other examples about how creative it is on taglines and brainstorming, everything else. It's the same open-ended question here is, give me some choices, get these 1,000 interns, give me some choices.
Yeah, you'd actually want it. You could ask it what are some good ways. I actually go the step further and I just tell it to give me some good visualizations.
Oh, okay.
Because then you didn't actually tell it to give me some.
Thank you.
And don't forget your manners, Paul.
I haven't tested back and forth. Have you tested back and forth with please and not saying please by chance, Adam?
No, I always say please.
Oh, okay.
I haven't tested back and forth.
Pretty please or
Paul,
just please?
So Paul, what Connor would tell you, because he talks about this in one of his videos, it's more about training you to communicate to it.
Yeah.
You will improve your prompts by treating it like a human is what the gist of what he says.
Yeah, and I can't hear what meeting we heard. I think that's the thing, you don't have to worry about AI taking your job. You have to worry about someone who knows how to use AI taking your job. Now, this is a good example for everyone that this does take a little while in processing. And it's kicking some off here. So let's see what it's kicked off. So here is a cost breakdown over year broken out by department. So it's figured out there's cost of goods sold, R&D, and sales and marketing. I'm not sure that's even helpful. Anyway, people kind of get the sense. And if you go on YouTube or look on YouTube, there's some unbelievable, Ethan, particularly from the Wharton School, has done some great stuff on posting on LinkedIn. So other contributions or thoughts, or we can open up the open mic to other killer use cases people have seen they want to share, or
So one of the things that blew me away was its ability to self-correct. So when you upload data, it was able to somehow detect like when there were data issues, cleanliness issues, and just go into an iterative mode to clean up the data. That to me was quite valuable because, you know, as a data analyst, you do spend a lot of time on like stupid stuff that you data cleanliness and missing values and stuff like that. And its ability to self-correct was quite valuable.
Alden, just that in itself seems transformative. The ability to save, you know, thousands and thousands of hours around the world with cleaning data.
Exactly, like just upload the,
yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Totally. Like just upload the data, help it clean it, self-correct, you know, convert it nicely into from CSV to whatever format you want, and then just download it again. That itself would be like quite transformative. Agreed.
Does it tell you what it corrected?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So in my case, I uploaded like some Excel file, and on the first shot, it said like, oh, you have missing cells. Let me do this. Then it says, oh, looks like you have UTF-8. Let me fix that. And this is all without me interfering. It's just like, you know, oh, looks like the best thing for you would be to use like UTF-16 with like Latin. Let's convert that. And after it did 3-4 rounds of this, it said, okay, your data is now clean. Now we are ready to process it. Here's the summary. And I was like, wow.
And totally agree. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, as a company called First Field, we had 7 data scientists, you know, really talented, very expensive. And we eventually were shocked how much time that they had to spend cleaning up data. Now that's before some of the better tools, but it is, in terms of productivity of high dollar knowledge workers, really important task. I know Fidelity, one of the presentations I was at Fidelity, they are very interested in getting their data analysts out of doing basic data analyst stuff and up 3 or 4 levels actually analyze data. Let's take 2 more minutes. Any other contributions or questions?
Did I hear that it has a problem analyzing formulae in the spreadsheet, or it can handle those?
I was the one talking about formulas. I ended up in a second round getting rid of all formulas and just using raw data. I think Alden is correct. It really needs to be, it does its best work if things are in table form with column headers and row headers.
Or proper headers. So even simple formula like some mathematical formula that it can work with.
Dilip, I don't know, to be honest with you. I've only spent
Okay.
a couple of hours with it, so I don't have enough experience to answer that question.
I mean, one thing I've been wanting to try is I want to give it a basic spreadsheet and have it identify all the input factors and which one, and just put a blue color in all the input ones, and you know, give me a list of all the formulas that whoever used this is. So
Paul, that was the reason I did ask the output to be in CSV file to see how well it interpreted an Excel spreadsheet.
yeah.
Right. So you can do things like that to check interim steps.
Good. Well, thanks, everyone. We're gonna wrap up here, but Adam, thanks for calling in from Australia, and Rosemary from California, and everyone else from all the other states here. So great conversation as usual. We'll get this posted on YouTube, and hopefully see many of you next week. Thank you.